Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Major Step Podcast here on WSVC Radio. We're back from our long winter break. I'm joined once again by Colt. Colt, I'm excited to start this semester with you.
Me too. I'm also very excited. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So nothing major is going to change on the show for the semester. We're going to keep bringing on some new departments. We are hopefully getting out the show to incoming students. So if you're listening to this as a prospective student and have heard about this,
Hello.
welcome back.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, welcome. Um, we are planning to bring on new majors that we have not talked about yet for the semester. So you can go back in the either YouTube, Spotify, or Apple feed soon and check out some of the departments we've already talked about, but there are still plenty more that we have not gotten to yet. Um, Colt, anything you want to add for the start of the semester yet? Anything that I missed for our show?
Not much that I can think of, but I'm excited to come back. We'll be putting out these episodes every week. So look out for your future major. If you have any suggestions of someone we want to bring on, or even if you're undecided, a prospective student, whatever it is, you can let us know either through admissions, who will be sending out all this information with some QR codes, maybe some links to our stuff. Just let us know through either them, or you can talk to us personally. Either one.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking to do somewhat of a rotation between the three schools to try to make sure we get a little bit of everything
Yeah,
here
trying
because
to
there
make
are
it
there are
as
so there are so many things we gotta cover.
yeah, we're trying to make it as even as possible. We'd like to do. I'm not really sure what's up next on the agenda. Today is going to be criminology, as you can see in the title, but
I
um,
think next week is we're looking to do something from arts and humanities. I
okay, yeah.
think I'm not 100% sure
So maybe
about that, but then after that we'll be going back to the Boyer School and then going back to
go
McKenna.
from
So
there. Yeah, just a simple rotation of that, and that'll continue until the end of the semester.
yeah, and I one thing that I was thinking of that I wanted to try to ask some more uh, mostly professors because the students we're bringing on are majors in the department, but to get some more information on some of the minors
Hmm.
because that could apply to students who are coming in, but also a lot of them that are already here,
Yes.
um, freshmen and sophomores specifically who are looking to pick something up. Because I feel like we haven't done a ton of information on the minors. Um, getting specifics on how many classes there are, if any of them cross list with some stuff. So I would like to explore a little bit more of that.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
something good to look into. I know as a communication major when I came in, all I had was a communication major, and I didn't realize at the time, but as I went on taking my classes every semester, I realized I wouldn't be enough to graduate. So I ended up picking a marketing minor up, and then I was like, oh, well, this already kind of crosses over with some core and my major, so let's do another one. So now I have two minors and a major, and the course load isn't really that crazy compared to what you would see at a normal institution. 5 or 6 classes a semester, that's pretty standard, I'd say.
for sure.
But yeah, definitely would like some more information on those.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should, I think we've done a good job of asking what things pair with what, meaning majors, minors, whatever
Yeah.
it might be. But definitely more information on what those minors could entail. And I know the McKenna School just released a bunch of new certificates over last fall. So I think we have 8 new certificate programs. So get some information on those. I know Dean Urich in our first episode a couple months ago touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah.
hopefully we can get some people who work in those departments in to talk a little bit about that. As Colt mentioned today, we are going to be doing criminology. We're going to have Dr. Kocian, who is the head of the department now. He's been here for at least a decade,
Yeah.
so lots of information I'm sure coming from this episode.
Yeah, he's one of the most experienced professors, and although you think of like the sciences and mathematics as like with the professors with the most knowledge, this man has been everywhere and done everything. So FBI, Marine Corps, academia, he's done everything. He's been everywhere. So a great professor to have on the major step.
Yeah, I think that's a theme that we've noticed with a lot of the people that we've brought on. The St. Vincent really values the professional experience. Not to say that going to get a master's and doctorate and then going right into teaching is a bad path. Some of those
Mhm.
professors are incredibly valuable
Yes.
too. But almost every single professor we've talked to thus far has had multiple years of professional experience before coming back to academics.
Yep. We'll get into the episode now. Yes, today we are joined with the head of the Criminology and Law Department, Dr. Kocian. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you being here.
Of course. So, Dr. Kocian, first, we're just going to get a little background on you. What's your professional career been like, and what led you here to St. Vincent College?
Actually, I never thought I'd be in academia. I always thought I'd be in law enforcement, and did my PhD at IUP, where I did my master's, did my undergrad at Pitt Greensburg, where I majored in psych and administration of justice, had applications out to the state police and the FBI, and actually worked as an FBI agent in training. Right before graduation, had some family issues that caused me to leave the Bureau and come back to Pennsylvania. St. Vincent had just started their criminology program, and I applied to St. Vincent and a couple other schools, and been here for about 12 years now, and recently took over as chair of the department and couldn't be happier.
Could you touch on a little bit more about how you ended up at St. Vincent College? I know you talked a little bit at the Wimmerfest that I was there for. That was a phenomenal speech. Could you just go into a little bit of that and how you ended up here?
Yeah, there was a priest friend of mine that I talked to before I went to the FBI Academy and kept in contact with him after I left the academy. And I was working all kinds of odd jobs, working in retail, working a little bit of digging ditches, worked a little bit as a bouncer. And he said to me, "Why don't you give me your resume?" And he passed it on to St. Vincent, and they needed adjunct professors at the time here. So I threw it in, and they said, "We'd like you to teach a couple courses." I loved being here. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the students. And when they had a full-time position that opened the next year, I applied for that, and was very blessed to have been given that opportunity to showcase my talents.
Do you find, so what types of other departments, majors, minors, certificates do you find that criminology is most compatible with? Like, what's the most common thing that students,
Like our discipline, our field is so wide open. I mean, if you're interested in counseling, I mean, it pairs great with psychology. If you're interested with different things with white collar crime, I mean, pairing a criminology degree with accounting or business management or business is fantastic. If you're interested in the hard sciences like chemistry, physics, you can work in a lab, whether it be in a federal law enforcement agency lab, state lab. There are so many different intersections with our field and our major that go well beyond lawyer, police officer, correction officer, probation officer. So it's really a dynamic field, and it's growing too with all the different advancements in technology and science too.
Do you find that students who do pair with something else, whether it be a major or minor or something, are better suited once they go out and look for a job come graduation?
Yes, and I think one of the keys is that these students have to sell themselves at some of these job interviews. If you have a major, and this goes for any field of study. If you're going to secure a minor, if you're going to do a double major, if you're going to pick up a language, you have to showcase that, because you might have that on your resume, you might have that on the application, but I think really when students leave St. Vincent, they have to either remind some of these employees or tell them why this is such a critical, like, for example, in criminology, if you have a minor in forensic science, which we have several forensic minors. We have a forensic minor in accounting, a forensic minor in natural sciences, and a forensic minor in cyber. You need to go into those interviews and tell those people, yeah, I have a major here and I also have a minor, which puts me several steps ahead of other people that are applying for this job because I have a better understanding of more than just one field of study.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not a crim major myself. I do know quite a few crim majors, and your intro class remains one of my favorites I've taken. So could you share just a little bit about what crim students can expect when they first come to St. Vincent?
Yeah, and I mean, I say this not to be controversial or political, but other institutions other than St. Vincent, there's a lot of virtue signaling. They're going to teach you how to think the same way as the professor, who may have a different political ideology than some of the students do. But here at St. Vincent, our department teaches the skills that you need to succeed. You have to be a good writer in this field. You have to be able to communicate effectively in speech in this field. And you have to be able to investigate and analyze information and figure out what's good intel and what's bad intel. And all of our courses here really do that because the professors in this department, regardless of whatever their political, religious, social affiliations are, they want our students to succeed. And our job is to give them the tools to succeed. So we focus a tremendous effort on professional behavior, writing good emails, writing properly in this field where we don't use contractions, we don't use first or second person. And you got a little bit of that in the intro course.
Yes, absolutely. I remember my first assignment. The only point I got off was for contractions.
Right, exactly. Because, I mean, you think about even with radio broadcasts, cannot sounds a lot different than can't. I can't do that. Did you say can't or can? Right? So when you look at, how law enforcement, federal agents might be communicating over radio, I mean, it's important that that message gets out and is heard.
For sure. So you touched a little bit on what fields go into after graduation. What about internships? What do you find most typical? And also, what do you find to be most beneficial for students?
Again, it's one of those things where whatever the students' interests are, we really advocate for them to do at least one internship in that field. So we have internships that are being done at the Latrobe Police Department. We have internships being done with private attorneys. The district attorney's office, the public defender's office, at Delphi, because those students are interested in working with troubled youth. We have internships really everywhere. A lot of those students that want to go into law enforcement, we really encourage them to try to find a department close to them so they can do an internship because they might want to find a job there. And our reputation as a criminology program is really starting to take off, where state troopers know the St. Vincent education is quality. Even at the federal level, we've had a couple students that have applied for and secured internships with the FBI. And those are national merit-based internships where they go and they have to find residents, usually in the D.C. area. There's a couple cities that they can choose from. But to those students' credit, they did the internship, and lo and behold, they did such a good job. They had such a great reputation that the FBI then found work for them as well when they finished that undergraduate degree here.
Do you find that to be common that students have an opportunity to find a full-time job in the internships that they did? Sometimes that's not always the key, or that not always it's not always the place for some of the other majors where they have a hard time finding a full-time job at the place that they did an internship at.
So I would say with our discipline, especially with like the lawyers, so to speak, if they do an internship at the courthouse with the public defender's office, the prosecutor's office, and they want to be a prosecuting attorney or a defense attorney, they still need to go to law school first. But what we're hearing, and several of our students are coming back and securing jobs in the county, because I just saw one guy at church on a holy day last week, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were back in the area. Yeah, I did an internship at the courthouse, and they hired me. I'm like, oh, you're working for the public defender's office now? That's great. That's fantastic. Right. So, and even if they don't get hired at that place, they get that experience, and organizations, companies, agencies talk to one another. If you did an internship with the Latrobe Police Department and you're applying to Pittsburgh, my guess is there's somebody in the background investigation process that knows somebody in Latrobe.
Sure.
They're either going to reach out formally or informally and say, what kind of a guy, what kind of a young lady was this person?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned how St. Vincent's crim department is really taking off in terms of a national level, being ranked in the top 10 and top 4 in the Mid-Atlantic. So what exactly goes into a program that is this strong? Professors, students, curriculum?
I think it's a combination. And I always encourage some of our prospects, for all the schools that they apply to, take a look at what those schools are offering as far as courses are concerned. Because if you're seeing courses that, again, aren't going to be very productive to you in your field, that may be more of a, like I said, like a virtue signal type course. Okay, that's great. And there are a tremendous number of issues that we need to do better with in this field and in this country. That's not up for dispute. But are you getting the tools that you're going to succeed when you go to an interview? If you have to do a writing sample, is your writing sample going to be the best ones that those agencies see? When you have a sit-down interview, with the Secret Service. We've had a young lady that did our undergrad program. She stuck around for her master's, which you can do in less than a year. She applied for the uniform division of the Secret Service. And I've never heard this happen before. She did so well in her interviews that the Secret Service moved her from the uniform division process to the special agent process. She is now a special agent with the Secret Service, and she has been assigned to the incoming president of the United States. I've seen her on TV before walking on. I'm like, oh my gosh. Not even 2 years ago, she sat in the classroom here at St. Vincent College, and now she's standing next to the president of the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's amazing, yes.
You touched on it a little bit. I asked you just to explain more of it. The Criminology department is one of the few departments that has a master's program here. What exactly does that entail? You said you could do it in less than a year. That's a pretty quick time frame for
it
masters.
And we really, when we put this together, our focus was to try to do so in a way that was most cost effective to students, not very time consuming, but it is a lot of work, because what we do is we pretty much cram 1.5 or 2 years of information into 1 year. It's more cost effective. And our thought was, if you have to go through this arduous process, the sooner you can get over it and get through it, the better. And so if someone does their undergrad at St. Vincent in criminology, we have at least 2 courses that you take as undergrads that actually are graduate level courses. So it's kind of like a crossover course. People coming to St. Vincent for the master's program from other institutions have to take ethics with me over the summer, but our undergrads already take ethics with me in the spring before they graduate. So that kind of double counts for them. And there's one other course that we double count for those students as well. So when you do the math, our master's is 30 credits, but 6 of those credits students are already taken as undergrads.
Yeah, they went a little bit ahead already.
Exactly. And even if they don't stay for their master's, they still have at least 6 credits of graduate work where they can say to their prospective employers, I've already done work at the graduate level.
Sure.
Take a look at this.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is more of a personal question, but do you have a favorite topic that you like to discuss with students, or one that you find students are overly engaged in?
So our professors in our department, they have different areas of expertise. Dr. Jakimowski does a lot of stuff with the mental health disconnect between that field and law enforcement, and how police officers might have to have a better understanding when they're dealing with people that have a mental health diagnosis. Mrs. Parsley, who's one of our newest hires in the department, her research looks at the stress and the coping mechanisms of law enforcement and their spouses, which is kind of a forgotten about population at times, because those spouses that are home wondering, is their significant other okay, they go through a tremendous amount of stress.
Sure.
Bruce Ankowiak, lawyer extraordinaire, right? His areas of expertise are different things with constitutional law, federal law. He's done it all in the law field too. Prosecutor, private defense attorney. He's worked on death penalty cases. I mean, he's still an active lawyer. My areas of expertise typically deal with things like homeland security, addiction, violent crime. So students have a tendency to gravitate with their elective requirements towards those professors that are going to teach them things that they're more interested in. But for me, a lot of it deals with addiction, which a lot of my research, where I use students to help better understand what's going on with this addiction epidemic. And we're starting up a second wave of research right now where I'm training students to go out and do clinical interviews to figure out how this person became addicted to these substances and what's working for them in treatment and recovery.
Okay. Yeah, so that's something we've seen a lot with departments, that they adapt to the things that are kind of going on in job world and general public life. So I think the addiction stuff is definitely points to that. So my final question for you is, and I mentioned that I was going to ask you this before we started recording, what would you want some prospective students to know about the department? Pitch it to these students.
Well, again, I typically don't even sell St. Vincent. I mean, I am happy to meet with any prospect that comes to campus. Any student that's undecided that wants to know about our discipline and our major, I'm happy to sit down with them and speak to them. And I tell them basically the same thing. You don't have to be a Catholic to go to St. Vincent College. You don't have to be a Catholic to major in criminology. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a believer of any kind. But you have to be willing to respect the 175 plus year tradition that St. Vincent College has, where the monks put together, the Benedictine monks put together an institution not to be this, national light and to have books on shelves from professors that taught here. The idea of St. Vincent College is to educate young men and women so they can go back into the communities and be a light and a resource and a positive influence on those communities. So for people interested in criminology, I tell them, you really have to be willing to challenge yourself. You have to be willing to give your best, and you have to be amenable to the recommendations that your professors that have been in the field, that know what it takes to succeed. So if you're looking for an institution where you don't have to show up for class, and you've had intro with me, I take roll every day. I ask how you're doing.
Yeah,
I try to get everybody involved because that's what the field is like. And if you're willing to challenge yourself, you want to make a positive difference in the world, you're going to put the work in, then St. Vincent and the criminology department might be the right place for you. But if you're looking to just basically skate by, you don't know your professors don't know you, you show up 3 times a semester to take the exams and you pass, that's not us. And that's okay, because there's a whole wide world out there of other schools and other programs that you can go to. Now, you may not be getting those professional opportunities because maybe your degree doesn't mean as much, but here at St. Vincent College, we do our very best to sharpen our students to be the very best they can be. So if you have that attitude and that proper work ethic, and you want to make a positive difference in the world, whether you're a prosecutor, a defense attorney, a police officer, a correction officer, a drug and alcohol counselor, spiritual advisor, working with juveniles, working with people that have went through traumatic stuff, working with vets, this might be the right institution for you. So I always tell people, come on in, sit in on a class or two, see if you like it, because we're not one of those departments that just sits there and does PowerPoint slides and, regurgitates what you're supposed to read out of the textbook. We're really there, and it's a hands-on discipline where, that hour and 15 minutes of class time, it's going to go fast because you're going to be working hard.
Yeah. So we were talking. This is going to go out to admissions stuff. So
Yeah.
any prospective students get to sit in on a free college class and see if it's for you.
Yeah, and I'll happily meet with them and their families afterwards or before and to talk about what we did. And I always tell people, we deal with adult content, we deal with adult subjects: terrorism, assault, murder, robbery, kidnapping. Whatever we're talking about in class that day, that's what you're going to sit in on. So it may be PG-13 or even advanced from that.
All right. Do you have any further questions,
I
Colt?
don't have any more. I'm all out.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate all you do. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
And now we're joined by Grace Hopper, who is a criminology major here at St. Vincent College. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, Grace, I'm going to start off with a question. What made you decide to become a crim major here?
Well, I think it started when I was a little kid. My uncle, he was a defense attorney, and I was just always around him, and law was just something I was always curious about. And growing up, I was always into crime docs, any kind of true crime stuff like that. And as I was getting ready to choose my major for college, I decided to go with criminology, and I kind of learned that there's just more than law school and all of that. So that's kind of what spiked my interest.
And does knowing that St. Vincent has such a renowned criminology program, does that make you feel safer in your decision picking crim as your major, knowing how good it is here?
Yeah, it definitely does. My sister came here for also the criminology department, and now she works at a psychiatric hospital, kind of with young adolescent males, and she's kind of on the right route where she wants to be with her, career-wise.
So how's the course load been so far? I don't know a ton about the track for criminology. Some majors have a lot more credit requirements than others. So how has it been in your experience?
I think for crim, we have a lighter workload. It's mostly just essays and articles and a lot of reading, honestly. But we don't really have many crucial exams or anything like that. It's just a lot of writing.
There's many different minors in criminology that Kocian talked about, a bunch of different forensics, natural sciences, cyber, and financials. So can you share how your minor in psych has helped you in your major classes so far?
I think my minor has helped a lot because I want to take like a route in mental health and working with young children and stuff like that. So it kind of depends on what you want to do career-wise in the field, but there is many different like the minors help with like with forensics. You can do, let's see, I think it's like you can do like be a criminal investigator, criminologist, stuff like that. With mine, I think I can be a counselor and stuff like that, and I can work in like jails or stuff like that. So
Yeah, Dr. Kocian did say that there was a very, very wide range of stuff that's available to you guys.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on some of your assignments, but what are the typical classes like for you? Do you guys do involved classes, or is it more lecture-based kind of stuff? Because it depends a little bit in each department.
it can go both ways. I think personally, I've had a lot of lecture-based classes, not too much with like coursework, but I think as far as that, like we do just a lot of lectures and we do a lot of notes, and we've had like field trips to like penitentiaries and places like that. So there's a lot of opportunity in the criminology field.
And this is more of a personal question, but could you tell us a little bit about like maybe a favorite class or maybe favorite subject that you've had? Personally, I loved my intro class, so.
Intro was always fun. I had Dr. Kocian for that class, and he always brings like a lot of life to the class itself. But he's an excellent professor, very hands-on, and he's very much so able to help explain things if you don't understand the first time.
Speaking of professors, how are they in the department? And I'm not looking to you don't have to critique all of them, but are they generally accessible for students? Are they willing to help outside of the class specifically?
Yes, all professors are very willing to help with their students. I've never had a bad experience with any of my crim professors. They're very easygoing and they're very understanding when you have anything come up, and they help you with the material if you're just not getting what they need you to get.
I know Dr. Kocian mentioned that he'd be happy to help out any prospective student, and I know that you came here as a prospective student with your sister and sat in a Kocian class. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I was a senior in high school, and I knew I wanted to do something in the criminology field, and I submitted my personal essay to apply for St. Vincent, and he reached out to me personally and invited me to sit in on one of his classes, and it was one of my favorite experiences so far, and it really introduced a lot more than what you just think the crim field really is.
Do you think sitting in on a class helped you? I sat in on one, but it was for an athletic visit. I don't think a lot of students get to sit in on a class before they decide to. Do you think that helped you?
I think that helped me a lot. It like changed my perspective of what a college course really is, especially in the criminology field. And it really does help you decide like what you really want to do and if it was really worth like the major you pick.
How has the transition from majors been for you moving into studying criminology?
Well, at first I came to St. Vincent as a health science major, and that whole year I knew like it just wasn't very intriguing to me, and it was something I didn't really want to do, but I think the influences at home is what made me choose that major. And towards the end of my freshman year, I decided that it wasn't for me, and I really wanted to go back to criminology, which is what I originally applied for. And my sophomore year was just very easy for me, and I was very more intrigued with my classes and willing to go and learn more and more each day.
What kind of resources do you guys have outside of the classroom? A couple other departments we've had on, they talk about different kind of study groups and things like that. So what do you guys do if you're looking for extra help?
We have excellent crim tutors, and we can go to our professors for pretty much anything. Personally, I will go to a tutor, or I will see my professors, because they're a lot more easygoing if you need help in anything, really.
And I have one more. Do you have any idea of what field of work you're looking to get into after college, or any interest in the master's program here?
I'm definitely interested in pursuing my master's after I graduate. For my career path, I think I want to take a mental health route with my psych minor, but I'm not sure career-wise what I exactly want to do, but I do know this summer I am going to work at a psychiatric hospital with my sister and kind of see if that's something that would intrigue my career choices.
So you just mentioned your summer plans. My last question was about internships. So you just talked about what you were doing this summer. Do you know what other people in the department plan to do for internships, or what they've already done so far?
As far as I know, no one like personally I know, I'm not sure what internships they're doing, but I might take an internship in Texas and work in an attorney's office and
Okay.
kind of do hands-on work with them and see if that's something I'd like to do.
How'd the connection for that come up?
My uncle, he has his own attorney's office in Texas.
Okay. Okay.
One thing I will say is that my roommate, who's a crim major, he's actually at his internship right now as we speak. He works at a morgue, and he's been telling me some stories that are very intriguing, I'd say.
Morgue.
Yeah. He said it was pretty easy to get into. Like, no one else wanted it, so he just scooped it up. But yeah.
It sounds like you guys do have a wide range of opportunities, though, both in internships and career paths, as evidenced by, you're going to work at a law firm and your roommate works at a morgue, which I just finding out right now.
I don't have any more questions if you don't.
Me neither. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's going to do it for our first episode of the spring semester of the Major Step podcast. We'd like to thank both our guests for coming on for a very, very informative episode this week. Colt, I think we've said this at the end of every episode so far, but the big thing I'm taking away is the wide range of career options for crim majors.
Yeah, 100%. When you think of criminology, you think of law enforcement and FBI, maybe lawyer, but not much beyond that. But I think having our two guests on really showed the vast positions that you can go into with a criminology degree.
For sure, yeah. And Dr. Kocian talks again about the importance of the professional experience that all the professors here have, and Grace mentioned the accessibility that they have. So I think that's awesome that they're both very very experienced, so they can help in the classroom setting. But you can also apparently it's very easy to go meet with them and get their help outside of class and get their professional experience. I think that it's super important in criminology because the way that Dr. Kosha describes some stuff, I think there are certain areas of the job work for them that it's hard. They're competing for a job, so any edge they can have and any bit of knowledge that they can get helps them tremendously.
Yeah, and Koshan also mentioned some of the students at that have previously went to St. Vincent that graduated with criminology and the things that they're doing now. Many police officers, many people in the FBI. You have Secret Services working for the President of the U.S. You have people that are uncovering some of the biggest drug busts on the border. Like some of the things that students with a crim degree at St. Vincent doing are pretty phenomenal.
District attorney too. Just anything. And I should have asked him about this, but I guess I can infer based on how many different places people have gone that the connections that St. Vincent has for these people, I think, are pretty strong. And that's certainly a valuable resource come graduation, trying to find a job. So criminology and all departments for that matter here are really good about finding places for students upon graduation where they belong, not necessarily just finding them a job for the sake of finding them a job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just the students here aren't just a number looking to boost a percentage of job placement after graduation. They're trying to help you in the real world. And I think that starts in the classroom. Teachers are teaching you real life skills as well as skills that you'll need inside your fields.
For sure, yeah. And it benefits, both parties benefit from that because, the students get to go on and do exactly what they want to do. And then their professors get to pitch the department and talk about all the different things that their students are doing. Like, Dr. Koshin has, it's 7 or 8 different stories that he mentioned of students that are doing things that they want to do. And it somewhat validates the work that the department is doing. So I think, that can only be good for both parties in that situation.
Yeah, pretty awesome stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything else. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Major Step Podcast here on WSVC Radio. Not quite sure what we'll be covering, but tune in next week to see what it is.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Boyer, station manager of WSVC Radio. If you like what you're listening to, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified with all of our updates. Every day, one of our shows will be releasing a new episode. Stick around and tune in.